Helen, welcome to another edition of Foreign Dispatches, a program that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Amarachi Ubani. On the program this week, thousands flee Jenin Refugee camp after Israeli army launched major operation in the occupied West Bank. Plus, 4th of July celebrations in the United States overshadowed by gun violence. The Israeli military this week launched its most intense operation in the West Bank in nearly 2 decades, carrying out a series of drone strikes in what was described as an anti-terrorism operation. That operation in Jenin camp, which is densely populated with civilians, comes at a time of growing domestic pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to respond forcefully to a spate of recent attacks on Israeli West Bank settlers that have emanated from Jenin, including a shooting last month that killed 4 Israelis.
Residents of Jenin camp were seen fleeing violence that included gun battles with militant fighters, as well as drone strikes that Palestinian authorities say killed a number of people.
80% of the dwellings in the refugee camps either destroyed or damaged that require serious repair. The electricity was cut off from the refugee camp. The water resources were also cut off, and 3,000 people were forced to leave the camps to try to protect themselves. So it's a horrific situation. It's a barbaric situation by the Israeli occupying forces in which they used aircrafts, they used large number of forces and infantries and mechanized units to attack this small refugee camp. And they wanted to destroy the camp completely, and they failed to do so, but they created a lot of suffering for our people. We want accountability for those who have committed the crimes of firing the rockets and destroying the homes in the refugee camp in Jenin and killing and injuring large number of Palestinians, including children and women and civilians, to be held accountable and to face the crimes that they have committed against the Palestinian people, because without accountability, they will continue repeating these heinous crimes against the Palestinian people.
The densely populated camp has existed since 1948 in the aftermath of a war that accompanied the creation of Israel. Now, Israel claims it's a hotbed for the Jenin Brigade's militant group and has moved hundreds of soldiers in and carried out days of strikes.
We came in a precise surprise tactic attack from the air on the Jenin camp. We're focused on destabilizing and stopping the infrastructure of terrorism inside the camp. Command centers, weapons, and we finished our initial activity, and we're going target after target to dismantle the infrastructure activity inside the camp. There's a direct line between Islamic Jihad activity and Iran, funding capabilities, etc., etc. Talking about how long this will last, it could take hours, and it could also take days. We're focused on our goals. We're not here to conquer or hold the ground. When it's finished, we'll be out of there.
Residents say that Israeli soldiers stood near an ambulance as locals were told to leave their homes and their possessions before being brought to this hospital.
They told us to leave the house. We left our clothes, money, and all our belongings. Today is a black day. They invaded the camp, same as the invasion of Jenin camp in 2002. We heard broken glasses and planes over our heads.
Footage released by Israeli police claimed to show arrests made as part of the operation, blurring faces to protect identities. For more than a year, army raids in cities such as Jenin have become routine. There have also been a series of deadly attacks by Palestinians against Israelis and rampages by Jewish settler mobs against Palestinian villages. Body cam footage from the Israeli army claimed to show a gun battle from the operation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to continue the operation for as long as necessary.
Well, we've just finished a comprehensive action against the terrorist enclave in Jenin. Jenin was to be a safe haven. It no longer is a safe haven. We operated in a very systemic way with large forces in one of the most concentrated and dense areas on the planet. And we were able to attack the terrorists while avoiding civilian casualties, whereas our enemies are committing a double war crime. They target civilians and they hide behind civilians. And we denied them that possibility while avoiding civilian casualties. This is a sign of our next steps. This is just the first step. It's not by no means the last action that we will take. We will do what we can from the ground, from the air, with superb intelligence. We will do what we can to fight the terrorists. They shall have no safe haven.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas appealed to international leaders to condemn the drone raids and protect Palestinians. The United Nations has said it's talking with all parties to de-escalate and ensure humanitarian access.
So we are alarmed at the scale of air and ground operations that are taking place in Jenin and continuing today in the West Bank, and especially on airstrikes hitting a densely populated refugee camp. This is the second operation in Jenin involving airstrike within 2 weeks. Due to damage to infrastructure, most of the Jenin camp is currently without drinking water, and the first initial estimation indicate that most of the camp is also without electricity. Health facilities have also reportedly sustained damage, and health partners are reviewing a list of urgently needed supplies and have already provided some supplies using stockpiles.
Ambulances and first responders have been prevented from entering parts of the refugee camp, including to reach persons who have been critically injured. There's currently no safe corridor for humanitarian access, which is a key focus of ongoing UN negotiations.
Meanwhile, a day after Israel launched the large-scale military operation, 7 people were injured in a car ramming and stabbing attack in Tel Aviv.
Individual rammed his car into civilians in a populated area of Tel Aviv, managing to injure 7 civilians. He got out of his vehicle and began trying to stab the civilians that were around him. Luckily, there was an individual, a civilian, who was armed, and he managed to neutralize this terrorist.
The 20-year-old Palestinian attacker from the occupied West Bank was shot dead by an armed civilian. Hamas claimed him as a member, saying he struck in Israel's commercial capital in retaliation for the ongoing military raid in the Flashpoint West Bank town of Jenin.
Meanwhile, despite Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu removing a crucial provision of the law, the impasse over Israel's contentious judicial reforms currently appears to have no conclusion in sight. Demonstrations against the effort to change the judicial system have garnered renewed steam over the past week as a coalition has advanced a bill to curtail judicial oversight over government decisions.
Tens of thousands of protesters waving Israeli flags and chanting democracy took to the streets, as they have done every week for nearly 6 months, to protest Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's proposal for a judicial overhaul. The overhaul would give politicians greater sway over selecting judges and would also limit the power of the Supreme Court to strike down legislation. The government argues that these changes are necessary to restore a balance among the branches of government, but critics see a threat to the independence of the courts by the Prime Minister, who is on trial on graft charges that he denies.
I came here today, like I've been coming for the past 25 weeks, to make sure that Israel will remain a democracy, that we will save the amazing thing that we've created here in the past 75 years, and Israel will remain a high-tech nation, a free country, and an amazing place to live in.
We're here to tell the government that we'll never stop, we'll never surrender. We're here to tell them that even though tomorrow they continue with the legislation, with the judicial reform, the overhaul, we'll never stop. We're here to show them that the Israeli people are not about any kind of dictatorship, nothing to do with rules and legislation that doesn't fit the Israeli democracy and the Israeli spirit of freedom.
I'm here to make sure that this government that we've elected democratically doesn't turn us into a dictatorship. That's the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. They've tried it in the past. We need to stand and safeguard our rights and make sure that it doesn't happen at all again, that they don't pick up their heads and try to pass legislation that will change things for good.
I'm here today, as I come every week, to demonstrate because I object to all the changes now in the country. I'm here with my daughters. I want a better life for them and for my grandchildren, because the way the High Court is being neutralized and the way money is going to only to certain sectors is very, very upsetting. That's why I'm here.
The plan has not been approved as quickly as Netanyahu hoped, but his government remains committed to pushing through the changes.
I'm here to protest once again against the judicial reform, which is in fact a judicial revolution because they want to destroy the democracy. And we are keeping on protesting because we want Israel to stay democracy.
Under pressure at home and abroad, Netanyahu agreed to delay the overhaul in March to try to negotiate with the opposition a middle ground. But after shifting focus to passing a state budget last week, the highly contested plan is again at the forefront. On Monday, hundreds of anti-government protesters also converged on Israel's Ben Gurion airport, leading to clashes with the police. There were some scuffles and arrests made as the angry protesters converged inside the airport arrival hall, dancing, blowing horns and banging drums.
Airport is the center of Israel. If we stop the airport, we stop all Israel. It influences all Israel. Before now, we do many things, but very quiet, very nice with flag and zambura. Now we cannot stop because it's the last 4 weeks for the game. Or we win, or they will win. And I don't like to lose.
Earlier in the day, demonstrators briefly shut off access to a major Israeli seaport. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is on trial on corruption charges he denies, has defended the reforms as balancing out branches of government and redressing perceived court overreach. The proposed judicial changes have also stirred Western concern over Israel's democratic health. The United States has urged Netanyahu to seek broad consensus rather than rapidly seek unilateral changes it said would compromise Israel's democratic health.
When Foreign Dispatches returns in just a moment, from thunderstorms to intense heat, millions across the U.S. celebrate Independence Day amid warnings of extreme weather. Please stay with us. The 4th of July in the United States brings all the annual festivities and fireworks, but it all happened in the shadow of more mass shootings, including 2 on Monday night in Philadelphia and in Texas. President Joe Biden branded the attacks tragic and senseless, and renewed his plea for new gun laws. The country has witnessed 5 mass shootings, each July 4, over the past decade, more than on any other day of the year.
Instead of a 4th of July parade, residents of Highland Park in Illinois came together for a community walk to mark the 1-year anniversary of a mass shooting in which 7 people were killed. A 22-year-old man remains in custody after being indicted on 117 felony charges for the violence. At a City Hall ceremony, residents remember the victims with a minute of silence and prayers.
1 year ago, we were shaken to our core. We were numb with shock and disbelief in the days that followed. We went through waves of grief and fear, sadness and anger have been a unifying thread, but in the face of adversity, we continue to move forward with compassion, determination, and purpose. We as a community know all too well the devastating and never-ending effect gun violence has on victims and their families, touching individuals and rippling out into the world. The emotional toll is impossible to express. Each one of us deserves to live free from the terrorism of gun violence. It's a fundamental right. We deeply mourn those who were taken from us, and we will forever honor and be true to their memories. It is impossible to make sense of the chaos as we look backwards, but what we can do is continue to support each other in ways that build our resilience and work towards a better future by aligning our actions with our values. We have a moral obligation to do so.
The United States has been struggling with a large number of mass shootings and incidents of gun violence. Just before midnight on the 4th of July, 4 people were also killed and 4 others injured in a parking lot in the state of Texas. And on Sunday, 2 people were killed and 28 others were injured in a mass shooting in Baltimore, Maryland. Among the injured were 14 victims under the age of 18.
This tragic incident is another glaring, unfortunate example of the deep issues of violence in Baltimore and Maryland in this country, and particularly gun violence and the access to illegal guns. We will continue to hold those individuals who carry those weapons, who use those weapons in acts of violence like this one that we saw today, accountable, but we need accountability at every level. From those who are selling and trafficking those weapons into Baltimore from places outside of our state, to companies who manufacture guns in a way that skirt gun laws in our country. And we also need community responsibility as well.
In a separate mass shooting incident in Philadelphia on Monday evening, 5 people were killed and 2 were injured when a suspect in a bulletproof vest opened fire on apparent strangers. The burst of gun violence and the prospects of more shooting threaten to overshadow Independence Day celebrations, underpinned with evidence that the 4th of July is the riskiest day for mass shootings in the U.S. calendar.
Happy 4th of July!
In a speech to educators on Independence Day, President Joe Biden repeated his call for Congress to take action on gun control legislation.
Educators now find themselves in the front lines of gun violence. Some of your members talked about it, Jill talked about it. With your help, we passed the most significant bipartisan gun safety legislation in 30 years, but it's not nearly enough. But Congress needs to step up, pass common sense gun safety laws to protect our kids and educators. And by the way, arming teachers is not the answer. Arming teachers is not the answer. Banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, extensive background checks, they're part of the answer. They'll make a big difference.
There's been over 340 mass shootings so far in 2023 in the United States, according to data collected by the Gun Violence Archive. Republicans in Congress have generally blocked attempts to significantly reform gun safety laws and oppose President Biden's push to reinstate a ban on assault weapons.
And apart from the fear of gun violence, millions across the United States were caught up in dangerous weather conditions over the past week and then braced for further extreme conditions ahead of the July 4 holiday, as thunderstorms and intense heat continue to affect much of the country.
As a scorching heat wave continues to grip the western United States, residents in Arizona sought relief at local water parks ahead of the 4th of July celebrations. Temperatures reached 46 degrees Celsius in Phoenix on Monday, the city's hottest day so far this year, 1 degree from the record for the days.
Myself, now that I have AC, I hardly ever come out when it's the high temperatures. But when I do, I want to be where water is, because you get wet, you stay cool. If you get wet right now and you're hot, you won't feel the heat. And that's basically what you do. You either stay in AC or you come out and get wet and play in the water.
It is hot and it's very draining. It's very, very draining. Everything, like normal, regular things that you do are draining. Like taking the cooler out of the car, or we brought 12 children here today and getting them in and out and changed. It's sticky because the humidity of the water park, but it is like oven when you walk out. And so it makes it's almost like more draining than just a normal park visit in the wintertime.
Highs in South Texas have recently soared to 48 degrees Celsius. The temperature in Houston, the biggest city in Texas, have also hit a high of 38 degrees Celsius, a record high for this time of the year. Ahead of Independence Day celebrations, authorities encourage people to stay hydrated, attend organized fireworks display, and not light fireworks themselves.
If you've been outside at any point in time, I don't have to tell you that it's hot. And I don't have to tell you that we are experiencing some record high temperatures in the city, and therefore the city of Houston has taken several steps to keep everybody cool. The city activated its public health heat emergency plan on June 14th when the Houston area began experiencing excessive heat. This is Texas. It's going to be hot. So whether we're dealing with 97 degrees or whether you're dealing with 102, hot is hot. And then, of course, when you combine that with the humidity. So with that being said, it's important that we all take the necessary precautions, be mindful of not leaving anybody in your car, including pets.
It has been dry. It has been hot. The conditions are right for a fire to start quickly. So please, don't be part of these statistics. We'd rather you attend some of these professional displays for fireworks than to take the risk of injury or worse in case of these fireworks. Remember to stay hydrated. Limit your activities to early mornings. Do not have strenuous activities in the midday and late afternoons. The best thing you can do to prevent dehydration is to continuously drink fluids.
Meanwhile, many in the Midwest were without power on Monday after tornadoes and thunderstorms left dozens of homes damaged and at least 3 people dead in Indiana and Arkansas.
Altogether, we're probably looking at roughly 3 miles right now of damage. So our crews are going to be out working for the rest of the night. We'll be out at least until dark. So we've completed primary searches on all areas and all structures that have been affected. We've been spending our time clearing roadways, just trying to get into some of the affected areas as well at this time. So primary search is complete. Now we're working on a secondary search, and we're going back through and basically taking a slow, methodical look at every house.
Many Midwest cities were also dealing with the aftermath of severe rain and flooding. Weekend thunderstorms in Chicago flooded streets and highways as nearly 9 inches of rain fell in some areas of the city in just a few hours.
That's the program today, but remember, our top stories are never far away. You can catch them on channelstv.com. Thank you for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Bye for now.